Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and a big welcome from USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we are so pleased to bring you a brand new show. The name of the show is Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. This is a very special topic because so many people have lost something, someone, and they're struggling and they feel so alone. They don't know who to talk to. They don't understand what the grieving process is like, how long it's going to last, and they're looking for support. And so we're here today to welcome one of our newest team members. He was already an elevated listener, and now he is the star of this show. He is joining us from Canada. His name is Doug Lawrence. And in addition to the work he does here, he's an international mentor. Let's welcome him to the show. Come on out, Doug. Hi.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this great opportunity to be able to create that space for people to feel comfortable enough to actually tell their story.
I really am just amazed at how our story unfolded, Doug. It's interesting to me how people come to this platform, whether they were introduced by a publicist or they found us through Google or they're referred by a friend, and we connect in such a wonderful level. And you have brought so much to me and to what I'm doing and to my life. I just want to thank you and honor you for that. And I want to commend you for coming here to share your story and providing a space for others to come forth and share their story. So I'm going to spotlight you, and I'd love for you to tell us, start with your story, and then we'll go into your grief and your journey.
So my story goes, it actually has a number of different paths to follow, but it primarily started with my 25 years in law enforcement and having to obviously see a lot of different types of trauma that obviously had an impact on not only my well-being, but my mental health, and also an impact on my family as well. So it was, and it went on for, I had 25 years of law enforcement experience. And so over that 25-year span, I was dealing with, unbeknownst to me, with post-traumatic stress and having to, try and figure out how am I going to get out of there, because what was missing was the actual fact that there was no support structure in place that I could go to get, some guidance, or even just somebody to listen and hear what it is that I'm experiencing and maybe offer some guidance or wisdom on how I might be able to deal with that. And, if I take a look at that part, that's sort of the first road that I had to go down in order to be able to deal with, the different sorts of trauma and things that I experienced. And then from there, kind of shifting into the time frame when my wife ended up with cancer and ended up passing away in 2021. And that opened up a whole bunch of different, we'll call them experiences for lack of a better choice of words. That opened up the aspect of having to now struggle or deal with grief. But what I just found out recently was that I actually experienced an expansion of that post-traumatic stress journey that I was on, in that there was the trauma that I experienced going back and forth to the hospital to visit Deborah when she was in the hospital and starting to fail. That that created another experience of post-traumatic stress, that here I was now having to deal with that. And so now today, when I take a look at my journey, and the grief that I'm experiencing, it's a combination of all of those things. So it's a combination of post-traumatic stress, and the stress has created some grief as a result of the loss of my wife. And I'm also dealing with, grief as a whole. And if that's not enough, I'm also trying to help as many other people as I possibly can in dealing with their grief, as well as dealing with mine at much the same time. So that kind of gives us a bit of a context to talk about, to certainly to go from there. And the one thing I want our listening and viewing audience to be cognizant of is that staying hidden in the closet and not coming out and wanting to talk about it is not going to do any one of us any good whatsoever. And we need to be comfortable enough, and that's what this show will do for you, is it will create that safe place where you can come and be with us, and you can share your story, and we'll be there to provide that support that I didn't get when I was in the RCMP and in law enforcement, and going through the trauma that I had to deal with.
Doug, I really appreciate you sharing part of your story there. And it sounds like you have been in service for decades, helping other people. And if you could elaborate a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder, what are some of the symptoms if people are out there and they're thinking, I don't even know what this is. Maybe I have it. I'm not sure.
Well, for everybody, it's a little bit different. We all experience things and deal with them differently. But for me, what I ended up experiencing, what I know now, was I had mood swings. I had difficulty interacting, so my social skills kind of took a bit of a beating, where I didn't like to interact with people because typically, in my mind, nobody understood that, I'm portraying myself as this unique individual, and, you should just understand, what it is or what I'm all about. But there's a lot of that. And the sad part was that typically what we see with a lot of people that are going through post-traumatic, and even some that are experiencing grief on the higher end, is the aspect of shifting to looking for a crutch. And by a crutch, I mean it could be alcohol, or it could be drugs. And ultimately that can lead to, something that's maybe not quite as something that isn't quite as nice, is when people start to talk about suicide and stuff like that. But for me, it was, I would experience trauma in my job, and I'd come home, and depending on at what time frame you sort of took a snapshot, I would come home. I'd be by myself at home because I was single at the time, and I would go to the closet where I kept all my liquor, and I would grab a bottle and throw the cap away, and I would drink until I thought I had cured all the world's problems, when in fact all I did was I made things worse. And I didn't make things any better for myself, in that the alcohol was not the solution. It was just definitely not the thing that I needed to be partaking in. So it takes from there, it's sort of, you recognize that behavior as being sort of undesirable behavior. And then what am I going to do to change that? And that's part of that as well.
Doug, when you were going through this stage and you were drinking, Did you feel that you were empowered by the alcohol, or did you feel that you were so isolated that this was your friend?
It was my friend. Most definitely, it became my friend because it never talked back. It never told me that, you shouldn't be doing this. It was almost like it kept saying, here's another bottle, come and throw the cork away, and let's get. And I remember, gosh, I was the most wicked person that you'd ever want to be around when it came time to, sort of the 3/4 of the way through that bottle of magic sauce, or so I thought. I became that really mean and nasty person that nobody wanted to be around. And that was another, part that I didn't understand was, what do you mean you don't want to, let's get together and have some drinks? And of course, for me, that was the answer. That was the solution to everything. But to them, it was, if he has another go of drinking, it's going to basically unleash the monster that's inside. And we don't want to be a part of that.
So you felt even more isolated. And how was your health physically at this time?
When I look back, it was a combination of the alcohol and the environment that I was in, and dealing with the stress and all of that. But it would be difficult to tell today. But back then, I had this huge patch of gray hair, and it was just right around the ear, and that was because of what I was trying to deal with and wasn't doing a very good job. So that part was that way. And then when we changed locations and went to another spot, actually just shortly after getting married, I remember I ended up with stomach ulcers as a result of the drinking that I was still engaged with. And then the other part was that I was right on the cusp. In fact, if push came to shove, I guess to be truthful to everyone, I became an alcoholic of some shape or form as a result of all of that. And it took years and years and years of, my family as my support mechanism to be able to get past that, where I saw alcohol as the mask. I saw it as the solution to all my problems. I saw it as something that I could take, and the more I drank, supposedly the smarter I got, which was the farthest thing from the truth.
Thank you so much for your transparency and sharing that. When you look back, do you recognize that person? Can you believe that that was actually you?
Knowing what I know, yes, I can. That was me. That was the bad me. If you were to take and look at it from the aspect of what would be your ideal person and what could be the opposite of that, I was most definitely the opposite of what I would call the ideal person. And it's challenging, or it can be challenging. I haven't had a drink. I started to taper off these last few years where I wasn't drinking quite as much. Some of that was health related. I ended up I had some heart issues that I had to deal with. And the doctors basically said, if you want to drink, go ahead. You may not like where you end up, but and so I said, well, just tell me what do you want me to quit? And this actually, the cardiologist said, yeah, it'd be probably a good thing for you to actually quit if you could. And I said, no problem. And that was back in 2020, and I haven't had a drink since then. But what it's done for me, though, is it's kind of opened my eyes to society as a whole, and how a lot of things are driven by social gatherings, are driven by alcohol consumption. and it's in some cases it's there's a number of different factors that fall into that. But I've found that socially sometimes, if there's a stigmatism with mental health, there's also a stigmatism of sorts with people that magically become non-drinkers, as I've found. So it's taken a bit of the adjustment on my part. And I always tell people, I say, I've quit drinking, but just think the benefit that's there for you. You now have your own personalized designated driver who can drive you wherever, and you can go ahead and drink until, until you're blue in the face if you wish. But I'll be there for you. I'll be there to support you. And, I've done that a couple times already, where what normally we would be flipping coins to see who's going to drive, I automatically just take my keys and away we go. And I'll tell me where you want to go and I'll drop you off.
Wow, quite a journey. I'm wondering, Doug, when you're with other people who are imbibing, do you find that you're not really interested in the stories or the behavior that they're sharing because it's so different than your life now? Or do you still feel that you're having fun?
It's fun to I guess to a certain extent, but it's definitely not like when I think back, I think back even when Deborah was still alive and getting together with good friends and, having a few drinks, usually 2 or 3, and then that was typically it. But now, I end up now going to family social functions and stuff like that where, I have my 2 cans of non-alcoholic beer, and that's it. When those are gone, I'm gone, so to speak. So, but it does, well, 2 things. Number one is that attached to that whole drinking, socializing, there's also the aspect of that society as what it is today is very couples orientated. So if you just think of some of the functions that you go to and you scan the room, or even if you're having a family gathering of sorts, typically what you'll see is it's couples. It's a husband and wife that are there socializing and all of that. I don't have that, at least not right now. Anyhow, I'm, and that's something that's missing. And to me, that could very well be something that can cause some level or some degree of post-traumatic stress, because you're dealing with with a lot of there's stuff missing from your life, and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to deal with that, and how am I going to make this so it becomes a positive experience for me, as just like it is for everyone else that you're trying to socialize with. So it does change my perception of what a good time is, and it does change where, especially from the social interaction part, it means that I have to find sort of my happy medium and then go from there.
Thank you, Doug. I'm just imagining during this period of time, you're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, you are having issues with alcohol, then you decide, hey, this doesn't need to be part of my life. And then probably the worst thing that could have happened was you lose someone who you love so much. If you feel up to it, if you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's been 2 years. So 2 years as of Monday. So the 6th of February was at 2:10 in the afternoon was when Deborah had passed away from a courageous battle with cancer. And she was everything to me. So, I did a little post on Facebook here on Monday on the 6th, and I put a picture and stuff that I wanted to share. And I talked about the fact that, what's now happened with her, with her passing is that there are, some things, some memories that we've had that we can look back on, and there's those memories that you you know you can't look back. They're sort of their memories or their opportunities or their things like that that could have taken place had she been able to win the battle against cancer and be able to move on. So it's I'm in this big house and I'm here by myself, and there's a lot of those factors that a lot of people don't think about, don't entertain. And what does that mean? And does that impact on my mental health? Well, the answer to that is yes, it does. And it also has an impact on my post-traumatic stress as well, because I'm not only am I still dealing with my time in law enforcement, but now because of Deborah's passing and sort of being the quasi caregiver for her while we're going back and forth to the hospital, on a daily basis in order to visit, because she's now in the hospital, and the words she's not coming out are the ones that we're having to deal with. So, and she was just so much to so many different people. And it's, you know, I think things are not quite the same, but for a lot of people, her social antics that she used to do, she was the entertainer, and she would do all sorts of different things that people began to, we got to make sure that Deborah's here for this social outing because she's the one that's going to keep it alive, and she'll, make sure that things are getting done and all that sort of stuff. So she was a lot to a lot of different people, setting aside what she was for me. So yeah, it's tough, but we just need to keep moving forward. And some days are easier than others.
And Doug, I was getting chills as you were speaking, and it just it sounds like it's such a beautiful relationship. We did put up the dedication, which we'll put up again. Tell us, read to us, if you would, read to her this quote that you wrote.
So this show is dedicated to Deborah, who has been and still is my inspiration and angel. And that picture, it's a selfie she took in 2017, and it was interesting because we exchanged selfies. I was off in another country doing my mentoring thing, and she was back here working at the hotel that she worked at for just about 25 years. And so we exchanged selfies, and that one has always been one that's kind of been my go-to picture, and it's one that I've used, in a number of different instances, just because it was her. That's the best way to describe it.
It's a beautiful picture and a beautiful tribute to her. How did you two meet?
Okay, so I call our meeting the photo album bride story. And so I was stationed in northern British Columbia with the police force, and Deborah ended up coming up to that same location and staying with her aunt and uncle, who ended up getting her a job with the Department of Highways. She was a flag person because they were doing lots of construction and all that sort of stuff. And so hadn't met her yet, but one night I'm over visiting with her aunt and uncle, and I was probably there I used to mooch dinner off them almost regularly. So I was there having dinner, and they hauled out the family photo album that they had and flipped through the pages, and there was a picture of Deborah I think it was her high school graduation picture or something like that. And I went, who's this? And they said, well, that's our niece. And I said, get her up here. And so that was the start of it. She came up north to northern BC and got hired by the Department of Highways as a flag person. And she would have come up, probably July-ish timeframe of 1977. And I ended up going to a local business in this small place, and it was actually right in the heart of the BC jade. So everything, they had all kinds of jade carvings, and they had this nice little jade ring. So I went and got the ring, and so I had picked her up, and we were going for a quick drive in the police vehicle, and I actually pulled over and turned to her and said, would you marry me? And I hauled out this BC jade ring, and she said, well, she's always wanting to get a bit of attention. So she said, why don't you propose to me tonight at Uncle and Aunt's? And there might even be some other people that might be there. So why don't you do that? So anyhow, long story short, I proposed to her. I remember being down, sort of sitting on the floor, and I turned to her and I said, is it time? And she said, I think so. And so I remember, asking for her to marry me, and she, of course, she agreed. So the next thing was, how are we going to go about telling our parents? Because neither one lived in that vicinity. Mine wasn't a problem. I went to a community that actually had telephone service because we didn't. And we ended up, her and I phoned my mom and dad and said, here's the news, and this is the date we've picked, and all that sort of stuff. When it came to her parents, though, she wanted to do it in person because she thought it would make her coming back home could be a little on the tumultuous side. So anyhow, it ended up that they were very, very good about it. As we jokingly said, that she might get thrown off the top of the Malahat Highway on her way back to Victoria, which is where they lived and stuff. But she said, I think it's worth it. So that was kind of our long-winded story about how we got to meet.
It's such a great story. I mean, I can't even envision you're sitting there having dinner and they bring out the book and you're like, yeah, get her up here. And she could have showed up and said, oh, I'm not interested, but yet it was fate.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was a relationship that was meant to be, and that's exactly what it was.
Doug, I want to ask you this question. It's kind of serious, but I think it's important. Some people have never known that type of love that the two of you had. And now you lost her. You lost that love. Do you think it's better to have loved like that or to never have loved at all? Cliche.
I think that loving like what we had, I think that there's nothing like it. And if you get that opportunity, that chance to experience that, it's, I don't know that there's words that could explain what that's like, but we knew what each other was thinking. We knew what each other was going to say. And we worked hard, like really, really hard at how we communicated with each other. We had people that would say to us, we wish that we could do what the two of you do when it comes to, discussing things or talking about things. We just wish that, we could be somewhat like that. And, we renewed. I ended up, I said, I have a surprise for you. And she said, oh, what's that? And I said, well, I want to renew our vows at the 30-year mark. And she looked at me and she said, what are you saying? And I said, I want to have a ceremony where we have a pastor come in and we renew our vows. And, part of that can be agreeing that we're going to be together for however many more years. And we kind of jokingly said we signed a contract that we would be another 40 or 50 years together, which obviously didn't happen. But so it was, that was the sort of thing, and I don't know a lot of people that do the renewal of vows, and we did ours at 30. And we actually ended up, I had everything all arranged. I said, you just don't worry about anything and I'll take care of it. I went and got a new ring for her. Very nice ring. So something that back when we got engaged back in northern BC that I probably couldn't have afforded then, but I was in a place where I could this time around. And, we got permission to have the service, the renewal of the vows at the RCMP chapel. Being ex-RCMP, I was able to facilitate that. And then we had some family and friends invited over, had a meal catered to here at the house. And it was, it was the realization at 30 years and the renewal of those vows, it was that we had something special and we needed to, respect that, and we needed to keep that fire burning. And to come back to your question, anybody that can get to experience that deep, deep, deep love, you're foolish if you don't take advantage of it.
Oh, that's so touching. I absolutely love it. I personally have never experienced anyone to love me like that. So just to hear you talk about it, it seems like it's just something that will never happen, but obviously it does happen. And what I'd love for you to share for the time that we have left on this first show is when I first met you on, I think it was The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth. It was hard for you to talk about anything related to losing your wife. And obviously, it will always be difficult, I would assume. But today, in order to help other people, you're able to share your story. What is it that happens that enabled you to make that transformation?
I had my moments today, as you probably gathered. I did have my moments where I could feel my emotions building. But for me, what it is that showing my emotions is one thing. And I think people need to understand, appreciate, respect it, and also engage in the sharing of their own emotions. It's that emotion, the sharing of that emotion that has become for me something that is very therapeutic. And so every time I get to tell my story and share my emotions, it's helping me on my healing journey. And I have no idea how long that journey is going to be or where it's going to take me or anything like that. But I just know that every time I get to tell my story, and that's why this show is so important, to me. Your story, your grief, your journey is all about the therapeutic piece that sharing that, talking about that actually plays in your healing journey. So it's all really important for people to be able to do that. And I could frame it in this context. If there's one or two people today that go, oh my gosh, that sounds like me, I want you to take that step forward, step out of the closet and look for somebody to be able to provide you the listening and hearing that you're searching for, that you're looking for. And when you find that, it's kind of like finding true love. When you find that, hang on to it with both hands and have that person, spend the time with you to help you move forward in that. And don't be afraid to show your emotions. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Don't be afraid to, share your love with people that could use a little dose of extra tender, loving care. So don't be afraid to do that and to help somebody else. I'm more than willing to help you. So if I'm willing to help you, I'm hoping that you're going to be willing to help others.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. And yes, I could feel your emotions. I know that you were holding yourself strong. And believe it or not, I was too. But that's what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
my last question for you for today's show, because you had mentioned this in another show that we did, was that people were not necessarily reaching out in a way that you needed them to because people don't know what to say. They feel, someone just said this to me the other day, that they hadn't called someone who lost their spouse because they didn't know what to say. And I said, but the fact that you haven't made the call says something also. It almost says you just don't care, but you do care, but you're not letting them know. So what can you share in that regards to people who are thinking they don't need to hear from me? So many people are over there bringing them food, and that's not the case. It eventually stops. People stop bringing over food. They stop making the calls. What is it someone needs when they're grieving? What did you need?
What do I need even to this very day? I just as, what, oh gosh, so precious. Yesterday, so yesterday was the 6th, so 2 years, sort of 2 year anniversary. And, I had, and this is probably off the question, but it's a point that I think demonstrates the caringness of individuals, but two individuals, two absolutely charming, wonderful women that I have had the distinct honor and pleasure of working with in a mentoring capacity, arranged for the delivery of a bouquet of flowers to the house yesterday. And it was to just let me know that they they care, and that they wanted me to know that they they were they wanted to be a part of that healing journey. And by doing so, they had this arrangement of flowers and stuff, and dropped it off late afternoon. And it's that sort of thing that people need to take into account. I get that you struggle, you don't know. We did Deborah's celebration of life, and at the celebration of life, I had people come up and say, we should get together for a coffee, or let's do lunch. And it's been, almost 2 years since the celebration of life, and I haven't seen those people. And so, the point you had so correctly made was that sends a message to me too, that, maybe it's not that important. But, at the same time, I think we all need to sort of say, okay, it may be difficult for me to reach out or to, want to have a conversation with somebody, but what if I don't? If I don't reach out, what if I don't have that conversation? How is that helping that individual? And, what I've also said is that if you don't know what to say or how to say it, ask me. If you ask me, I'll guide you through what would really help me and what will really help other people. But just ask. Don't not go out and have a coffee with somebody. Don't not go out and have lunch or go for dinner, together. Don't shy away from doing any of that just because you might offend somebody. You're offending me right now because you're choosing to not be there as part of my support structure. And that's important to me.
A great call to action, that we need each other. We need each other. And if you've been in someone's life and then all of a sudden they lose someone they love, why have you disappeared? What happens that you disappeared? What I suspect is that when people get together, maybe they're concerned that the majority of the conversation is going to be about loss. And if they can't think of what to say on a phone call, how are they going to know what to say for? And it's just being human. it's just showing care and kindness and listening. So I really appreciate the authenticity that you have here today, Doug. And I know it's not easy, and I knew it wouldn't be easy, but it's really a calling. It's a calling that you have to help other people. And you and I will be back doing this show, and we can do it ourselves, but we'd love to have other people join us as well. So can you just tell our audience, who is it that we'd like to come and book in as a guest?
If you have a story that you want to share, whether ideally grief related, or you're looking for some, what should I do if this happens, or how do I go about? You've talked about, the journey and all of that. Help me understand more what that actually means. So if that's you, I encourage you to go to the website, to the USA Global TV and Radio website, and fill out the form to come on to the show, and we'll have a conversation with you. And it's not, it's not a painful experience. It certainly is something that you're going to remember and enjoy, and it's going to help you in your healing journey. So I ask you, I encourage you, all of those things that take that step forward, and, we'll welcome you with open arms to the show.
Thank you, Doug. And while I have you on Spotlight, can you talk a little bit about the work that you do as a mentor?
I sure can. So as you know, I'm an international certified mentor. And so what that means is I'm mentoring individuals I work with, entrepreneurs, as far away as Jamaica, as an example. So I work with them. I work with, military personnel transitioning from military to civilian life in the United States. I do leadership mentoring. If you think of an instance of where mentoring could play a part, that would be me. And so that's the best way to describe it. And I'm more than willing, if people are struggling and not sure how to grow personally and professionally, I'm more than willing to do what I can to help you overcome that, and, to be able to move forward in that capacity as well.
Thank you so much, Doug. And when we think about the types of guests, are you interested in having people who have other types of grief? Maybe they've lost their work, they've lost their health. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, we most definitely can. Like, the one of the examples I used when we were talking early was the trauma of the hospital visit, and I know that's kind of attached to the medical part, but that's one example. I've had people that have lost their identity as a result of a relationship that just blew up. So, this show would be a great place for that to take place. There's all kinds of being bullied, causes a bit of trauma unto itself. And so if you've gone through a situation where you've been bullied and you're, seeking help, guidance, a safe place, this is the place to come, to be able to do that. So there's just so many different aspects of trauma, and so many different aspects of grief that we'll never run out of things to talk about. Trust me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we do have here the link for people to go and register. It's so easy. Just go to usaglobaltv.com. You can also go to usaglobaltvandradio.com. It takes you to the same place. Go across the top to book your session, and then look for the show, scroll down, answer the 3 questions, and book in. And we will be very happy to have you here. Doug, once again, a wonderful share by you. I really appreciate it. How do you feel now?
Better. This was therapeutic, for me, very therapeutic. And it's going to make the rest of the day go by a lot nicer.
I'm thrilled to hear that. And thank you to your 2 friends who took the time to reach out to you. I think that's really beautiful. We need more of that. And it starts with us. It starts right now. This is the opportunity. We just heard from Doug. He just put his soul there on the table for us. And why not help someone else? Why not stop focusing on yourself and go out there and help other people? You are helping other people, Doug. How can people hire you? How can they work with you?
It's you can certainly engage with us on the show. For we've got lots of opportunities for that to happen. And if people want to have a conversation around how can I be helped and stuff like that, they can always reach out to me. Or they can reach out to me through social media, through LinkedIn, or that's probably your best bet is through LinkedIn. That's probably the best way for people to, if you want, like I said, if you want to go forward, move forward with things in your life, we can certainly see what we can do to help that journey be a whole lot easier.
Thank you, Doug. And you're also an author. We'll have you read for us in a future show. Tell us about your work as an author, please.
So I published back on, 2014, I think it was. I published The Gift of Mentoring, which was basically Mentoring 101. And then in 2020, I was able to, it's not going to show up very good here. So I ended up getting a book published, You Are Not Alone, it's all about mentoring and mental health. And the book is actually made the Amazon #1 bestseller list and the Global Book Awards. It was bronze. So it received the bronze medal or the bronze award for that. So, and I have a book that is now with the publisher. And we're working through, obviously, the editing process and stuff like that. But that book is entitled The Silent Pandemic. And the Silent Pandemic, it talks a lot more about grief, but it now has, I talk quite a bit about cancer and obviously because of what Deborah passed away from. So, yeah, so, I mean, You Are Not Alone is available on the Amazon.com and .ca websites for purchase. So if you're so inclined and interested, I encourage you to go to the website and order a copy of the book.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, congratulations with your new project, and we'll look forward to hearing more about it. Doug, when can people see us again on this program?
So it's every Tuesday. And so it's next Tuesday at the same time at, and you're going to make me try and figure the time.
1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And what time zone where you are?
Where I am, it's Central Time.
All right. So it'll be noon Central Time. Thank you very much. A great first show. I'm glad that you feel lighter and lifted. And that's what we want for everyone, because we can all sit around and feel sorry for ourselves and just sit around and cry. And it's not a great way to live at all. No. I say to myself, when I'm feeling down, you have 10 minutes and that's it. 10 minutes of a pity party. And then it's time to move on. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I like that. Actually, I can use that.
And I think it's good after the 10 minutes because, I'm in the dark all the time in the studio. I'll go outside. I'm like, wow, look at that. It's a beautiful sunny day, or there's animals living here. And it just changes your whole perspective. So I think allow yourself that time to feel sorry, get the tears out, and then move on. It's like that was on your schedule. Boom. Let's do something else now.
Yeah, I agree. I think moving on is important.
Well, I'm just so proud of the work that you're doing and so honored that you're doing part of it here with me, with us, with our community here at this USA Global TV and Radio. We will be back next week, so please do stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you want to watch the show, as of this evening, it will be in a playlist with the same name as the show, Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. And you can also find it on all the other social media platforms. I like to send everyone over to YouTube YouTube, USA Global TV and Radio. Look for the playlist. Again, it'll be there tonight. It's actually there on YouTube right now, but it will be categorized in the playlist this evening when I have time to get to it. So thank you again, Doug, and thank you to our viewers and to our listeners. We really do appreciate you. Please do not keep yourself in silence. Reach out. There are people like Doug. There are people like me all over the world. They're just waiting to hear from you. Walk through that door, open the window, whatever it is, find someone. All right, Doug, last words from you for today.
No, I just encourage everybody to, take care and take care of yourself and those around you, for they are important.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, everyone. We will see you again tomorrow. That's our last show for today. We've got a full boatload of shows tomorrow. And today we have our course, The Art of Being a Professional Interviewer. So, Doug, I'll look forward to seeing you there.
I'll be there.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye, Doug. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.